disconnection negatively impacts this population. And so it's crazy making for me to witness the opposite of rehabilitation happening in our prisons.
Welcome to More Than Inmate's Girlfriend. I'm your host, Jay, and it is the first episode of 2026, you guys. I'm so excited. I hope you had a good holiday. You know, I had an interesting one, and I'm curious if anybody else has felt this way because it definitely caught me off guard. I went to visit Nick's family for the first time in Washington for Christmas, and although I've talked to his family like multiple times and whatever, I've never seen them in person before. So I booked a flight. It was like 5 days. Everyone was like, you're crazy meeting your in-laws for 5 days. Like, how many people have good in-laws? And I mean, I've met my father-in-law before. He wasn't going to be there, but he was awesome. I've met Nick's great aunts and uncle and cousins, and I met some extended family and just love them. So I'm like, I love his mom already. It's going to be great. I cannot tell you how amazing of a time I had. It was incredible. And I didn't expect to get along. It was like they were family from day one. We're like 5 seconds in. So I had a wonderful time, 5 days, came home, and I crashed. And I realized that being there made me feel close to my husband. And for those of you that have been following us for a while, you know that we haven't had contact or been allowed contact. We just got a brief back from the state for a lawsuit that we're filing because they really have no reason to be blocking our contact, but they are. So being with his family made me feel so close to him, and I just crashed when I got home. For real, like I felt far away from my husband again. So I'm curious if anybody else has had that kind of experience. But anyways, this week's episode, I've been waiting to drop this episode because Black Sheep Mom is someone who I found on Instagram a long time ago when she had first started. And now, like, she just won some awards. Like, she just celebrated her 1 year. Incredible. This woman has done some fantastic things, and she is on the show today talking about being a mom of someone who's incarcerated and what that's like. Can you imagine? So it's an incredible episode. She's not only a mom of someone who's incarcerated and fights for her son, but she's also a registered psychologist. So her insights, her opinions, it's all there, and she's just such a pleasure to speak to. Her blogs are incredible. All the information is in the show notes, so you can take a look and check out her blog and her Instagram and her socials and follow this woman. And I think anybody who is listening right now who has a loved one, who has a mother, should be listening to this episode because she really puts a lot into perspective. Before I get to that, I'm going to give you a little bit of update. If you're following our socials, you know that More Than Inmate's Girlfriend is releasing a gift catalog. So what does that mean? Basically, it's a catalog for incarcerated people to order gifts for their loved ones. Oftentimes, they don't have anyone to do the actual purchasing of gifts. So for that reason, AJ and I have developed a catalog that we are releasing across the US through the More Than Inmate's Girlfriend LLC, and I'm so stoked about it. If you have any questions, comments, let us know. You can reach us through social media at More Than Inmates GF on TikTok, at podcast_prison GF on Instagram, and we will help you through. The other thing is, if you want to send a catalog, they're not always going to be free, but right now we're excited about it. We want people to see it. And just super stoked about the support. That if you want a free catalog sent to your loved one, you just have to go on our website, www.morethaninmate'sgirlfriend.com, and you can see the catalog and then fill out the information, put in the code. It'll say it's $9.99. Put in the code J and AJ, so JAE ANDAJ, and then it'll remove the cost. So just make sure that the shipping information, that's what we care about the most, not your contact information, but the shipping information of your loved one with their name, their inmate number, all that jazz, and we will send them a copy for free. So we thought it'd be pretty cool, and so far everybody seems super excited about it. I'm super stoked about it. So yeah, that's going down. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the expansion of my publishing company. So most of you probably know, but if you don't, I have a publishing company for incarcerated individuals called Best Self Publications. You can go check it out, www.bestselfpublications.com, where we are, so far that I know of, the most affordable option for publishing books by far. I do not believe in taking advantage of people, and the prices that I saw is the reason why we started publishing books for incarcerated authors, because the amount of money that people are charging them is atrocious when they cannot do the work for themselves. So for that reason, we started this company. And if your loved one is interested in getting a book published, we do everything from the typing, the formatting, the publishing, royalties, all that jazz. Again, you can reach out through our socials to find out more information, or you can email info@bestselfpublications.com. That's all I got for you. Enjoy the episode. Love you guys. Take care. Bye. Bridget, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so appreciative that you took the time out to speak with me, and I cannot wait to dive into this topic with you.
Oh, certainly. I'm honored to be here.
I really want to talk about your son and what kind of person he is before all of this, and what his character is really like despite whatever is happening in his life right now.
Yeah, I can say before and during all of our experiences, he's a great guy. And he was a fun kid to raise. He was a challenging kid to raise. He's funny. He's always loved dogs. He loves playing ball. He's always been an athlete. He loves kids. He has a younger brother, and he asks about him a lot. He thinks about him a lot. He's just got a good soul. And even through incarceration, he has maintained a smile. The minute I get to see him, he lights up. He's maintained a wit. Even walking through hell, he will still crack a joke in the visiting room. And more recently, he's cultivated sort of like this gratitude practice, and he's finding purpose and hope that for a while he had lost an addiction. So I'm proud of him. I think he's a wonderful man, and I look forward to who he is even beyond this.
Oh, that positive attitude when going through so much, to see them smile and see them happy, it's almost a relief sometimes for us going through it on the outside.
Yeah, for sure.
So what happened with his whole experimentation with drugs? When did this start? When did you become aware of it?
We come from a long line of rebels and hippies and folks who have abused substances. I have luckily skated the addiction gene or fought hard against it in my life. But I knew that my kids, the three older ones, were experimenting with alcohol, maybe weed. We had those talks. I had my concerns, but I didn't know anything about hard drugs with my son until he was probably 19. And that's when it became apparent that he was in pretty deep. He tells me that his experimentation with drugs and alcohol started early, and that included harder drugs. Apparently, someone had brought meth to school when he was 14, and that was the first time he had ever tried it. And I was completely unaware of anything like that until he was out of my home.
Wow. So do you remember the day that you found out that he was on hard drugs?
Yeah, specifically the day I found out about meth. He had called me and told me he needed to talk to me, and he was in an incredible mood and very coherent. He wanted to talk about life. He wanted to talk about the big picture. He seemed very clear. He asked me if I'd meet him at a local coffee shop, and I did. And he got into my car, and it was probably about 20 minutes before I realized something's up. And there was no tweaking, there was no twitching. And I'm a clinical psychologist. I have worked with addiction for years, and I didn't see it. in him until things got a little bit bizarre and he started rambling. And I asked him if he would come over to my home, and he agreed. So he ended up coming to my house, and from there, he went into a pretty serious overdose. He was seeing things that weren't there, and through the night, he got sicker and sicker. He was writhing around, puking, and I had no idea what to do. Even working in mental health, I was not sure what to do. So I stayed up most of the night with him. And the next morning, he admitted to what it all was and said he needed help. And so that week, he went to his first stint in rehab.
Wow. Do you remember what was going through your mind?
Fear, abject fear. I wasn't sure what he was on at the time. But I think realizing he was deep in the grips of addiction was a slow motion process. In my brain, I just couldn't get my head around how long this had actually been going on. And my only consideration at the time was to get him help. We need to get him help.
Yeah.
I flew into mom mode, and I flew into professional mental health advocate mode, made the phone calls, put $25,000 on my credit card, anything to get him help, because I thought that's what he needed. And looking back, he was contrite. He did want help, but he wasn't ready to receive it. And so we would do a couple more stints of rehab and county jail and then eventually prison before he has truly faced the demon of addiction.
And I think it's interesting that people who don't have experience with addiction see the people in the street that are in psychosis and are homeless. But I've had experiences with people as well that have been on drugs, and I couldn't tell that they were on it.
Yeah.
It's very easy to hide.
My own son, for 20 minutes of a conversation, I had absolutely no idea.
Yeah. Exactly. I remember I used to have to ask the person that I knew, are you high right now or not? Because I literally had no idea. And then all of a sudden you get to that psychosis part and, like you said, the hallucinations and stuff. And then it's like, whoa, wait a minute. What's happening here?
And for my son, this was before he would do long binges. So it progressed into the point where he would stop coming over for weeks at a time. His apartment was not just a mess. It was destroyed. Destroyed. He had that smell, the one that if you've ever loved someone in addiction or worked in mental health, you know the smell. It's the haven't showered in days. But I was blaming everything. He worked outside. He works in a trade, and he worked outside. And so I was blaming his long, difficult work schedule. I was blaming his mental health because he has had several diagnoses, including OCD, and he's on the spectrum, Asperger's when that was a diagnosis. I blamed his girlfriend, who was not good for him. I blamed all the other things, not realizing that it was addiction until I saw a pretty severe overdose.
Yeah. You mentioned that he'd gone through some rehabs and then he went to jail, and then there was the day that he was incarcerated. You got that phone call. What was that like?
Yeah. Well, I've gotten county jail calls over smaller things, silly things. And to back up, he was expelled from high school under what was then a zero tolerance policy. He had gone to football camp in the middle of summer. He had left a job where he was baling hay, and he had a pocket knife in his pocket to cut the twine on the bales. And a couple days later, while at the football camp, the cops had been called into the college dorms, and they searched everybody's stuff. And in my son's bag, they found his work pants with his pocket knife inside. And the cops didn't have a problem with it, but the school claimed that they had a zero tolerance policy, and they enacted an expulsion process. So even though he was never violent, he never got the knife out, he never showed it to anyone, they expelled him his sophomore year of high school for having a knife in the middle of summer off campus. So that began a downward spiral, and he went off to military academy. And the night before he went into military academy, he went on Facebook and he tagged like 47 acquaintances from school, something like that, and said, F you. And the prosecutor in our county was notified, apparently, of this post and charged him with 47 counts of malicious use of a communications device. So basically cyberbullying. So he was young. He was still a teenager when he got charged with that. That's what put him on the radar. for legal trouble.
Yeah.
He took a plea and agreed as a juvenile offender that probation would be the course of action. As long as he successfully completed probation, those charges would be removed. As an expelled teenager with mental health and substance abuse issues, completing probation proved to be quite the challenge. And so he got stopped one time. Once again, he had a work knife in the vehicle with him. He was arrested for that. It became like the series of small violations for probation, which is when I would get the phone calls from the county jail. He got picked up again. He had a knife. He got picked up again for whatever reasons.
Yeah.
So the first call from county jail made me cry.
Yeah.
The second one pissed me off. And by the third one, I was devastated because I knew at that point he was going to see prison time. And I think getting the call from intake for the big house was the hardest one. That felt like I just strapped on a 50-pound vest, and I'm still walking around in that. It's been heavy ever since.
It's so sad because the smallest thing that happened to him that could have been corrected, because it's so easily explainable why there was a knife in his bag, and it just snowballed his whole life in a completely different direction. And it's the smallest thing.
Yeah. Yes. Because we have a punishment paradigm.
Yeah.
We don't treat mistakes as things that are redeemable. We treat them as fatal moral flaws. And that starts in elementary school. You know, I've worked in mental health and education for a long time, and we put targets on kids and we label them and we put them in the hallway and we put them in reflection rooms and we put them outside of the group and we say, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Go figure it out. And that approach is failing. It's failed my son's generation, and probably before that, it's failed generations of people.
Other than experiences with him, had you ever had any experiences with the prison system? Did you have any preconceived notions about what it is?
I think like most Americans, I kind of believe that you do the crime, you do the time attitude. I did have special insight. I had some family members who had gone to county jail, and I actually had an ex-boyfriend who had gone to prison just after high school. And I did visit him in the 90s in an American prison, which it was very, very different back then. They wore street clothes. I remember taking a jacket to the prison for him to have. And so a lot has changed in the system since the 90s. So what I would have expected is very different from this ride. Night and day, actually.
Really? So I know you've had a lot of experiences now dealing with your son and the system since he's been incarcerated. What have been those experiences, how it's been, but also the fact that we have to be careful when working with the administration because of the threat possibility and what they can do?
Yeah. Working with this system is a lot like one of those funhouse mirrors at the county fair. The mission statements and the marketing angles for DOCs, in actuality, live up to none of the claims. We're certainly not rehabilitating folks. And that's been sobering to see over and over. Navigating the rules and the expectations and the realities of being a prisoner's family member is so complicated. And it changes from facility. I've been to 4 facilities in our state, and each one is vastly different.
Wow.
I found the experience to be frustrating in that it's not a cohesive experience. When you say you have a family member in prison, you never quite know what you're going to get. I've had administration be responsive to me.
Okay.
I've had administration fail to respond to me at all. I've had COs be condescending and rude and dismissive, and I've had COs be wonderfully interactive and kind. It really has been an interesting roller coaster of a ride. I think the frustrating part for me has been watching how the parole board and the state demands things that the DOC is not in the business of doing.
Oh.
So advocating for your loved one is complicated at different levels. At least that's been my experience. You call one entity and complain, and they say, oh, that absolutely should not be happening. Let me check on that. And then it's a round robin of excuses and kicking the ball to somewhere else and then someone else. The responses are never clear based on what level of agency you're talking to. I do think that advocating is essential.
Okay.
But I've had to learn about the volume knob on that. If you get too loud or you get too correct, suddenly you're going to find your loved one a little bit harder to access, or you're going to be under closer scrutiny. I know that my son has been treated differently because of my advocacy. And that's why on the blog and even at this conversation, I don't name him.
Yeah.
And I don't talk about where he is, just because I don't want to bring any more complication to his prison stay.
Right. And when you say that he's treated differently, you mean differently in a negative way because of it?
Actually, both, negative and positive. So when one facility learned that I was a psychologist in their state, and I wrote an official letter to the warden with concerns, it was actually a COVID mandate that was my concern. His entire unit had been mandated to solitary confinement as a policy under COVID. And I wrote that warden and I wrote the state and basically stated facts and gave my credentials. They listened pretty quickly. And he was moved out within probably a couple of days of my contact, when other families had been complaining before me. But I have also seen them, when I say them, I'm going to reference a person pretty high up in our state government, lie to a local legislator concerning my son's case. And he said, I'm very aware of her claims. And then my son suddenly was sanctioned and treated differently in the facility that he was in. So it's gone both ways.
Ooh, that can be scary. So are you in the business right now of choosing your battles when it comes to dealing with the administration? Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. Yep.
So like you've mentioned a few times, you're not just his mom, you're also a registered psychologist. How has that shaped the way that you have processed your son's addiction and incarceration?
I'd like to think that my experience in education and mental health has helped me to cope. But the truth is, I'm human.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it's made his ride harder for me to endure, because I know about his need for mental health support and his need for recovery support. And to witness him just be caged without access to quality help has been infuriating. I see how disconnection negatively impacts this population. And so it's crazy making for me to witness the opposite of rehabilitation happening in our prisons. It makes me want to just scream what I know, like even just from working in mental health, like we're doing the absolute opposite of what we should be doing.
Yeah.
Poor nutrition and removing access to fresh air and taking exercise or movement as a punishment, or pushing meds on people, and then solitary confinement. All of that stuff is the antithesis of growth and potential for change. As a psychologist, it's maddening that this is the model that we think should be our response to crime.
Crazy, right? Oh, man.
Yeah.
And I'm not a psychologist, so I can't even imagine how mind-boggling it must be for you. Is there anything that you wish the prison systems would understand more of addiction or have a proper grasp on, other than what you've already said?
Oh, man. They don't have a grasp on even the basics.
Yeah.
And some of that is not the fault of DOC. Some of that is the bigger picture of deinstitutionalization of psychiatric care in our country resulted in DOC having to take over people in addiction and mental health spirals. And they're not trained or equipped in any way, shape, or form to deal with folks who are in active addiction, coming out of addiction, caught up in mental health, cycles of mental health concerns. They need to read books like Chasing the Scream by Johann Hari, because it talks about addiction is a disease of disconnection. And so putting people in cages where they can't access loved ones, they can't calm their nervous systems except through substances, which, by the way, they can access still with any prison in America. You can get a hold of any substance you'd like. This mindset that addiction is a personal or moral failure, I think, is pervasive. Frankly, we lost the war on drugs. It's no longer a discussion of whether or not it works. We lost. Because we still have drugs in every neighborhood, every school, every prison in this country. And so I'm not sure when corrections departments are going to figure out that humans will set themselves on fire trying to feel better. And we're pouring gasoline instead of bringing them water. I wrote a whole post about this past year, and I'm even more incensed now than I was back then. We have got to do better with addiction. The rates of incarceration for folks in active addiction, or even with their crimes happening while under the influence of alcohol or drugs, is over 75%. And so thinking that we can just cage them and solve the problem is lunacy.
It really is. And I don't know about you, but I remember when I was growing up, it wasn't like this. I remember being able to go downtown and feeling safe and not feeling that everybody was on drugs. And now I go to any city and it's everywhere. I didn't even know what meth was.
Yeah. And my son tells me with transparency, I can get anything I want. I can get my head with enough money or enough commissary. And so the fact that he's sober today, he gets a lot of credit for because he's making that choice every single day, even though he knows he can.
And without blame, what else are they going to do specifically? My husband's in a unit where they're locked in a room for 21 hours a day. What else are they going to do? They don't have access to jobs. They don't have access to hobbies. They don't have access to training. They don't have access to anything.
Exactly.
So what do you
exactly
expect?
right.
Except for them to try and fly high.
You almost can't blame them.
Exactly.
I mean, what the rest of us do, we want to escape that reality. It's torture.
Exactly. It's torture. Back to being mom. I know from friends who have parents who have kids that struggled with addiction, there's this where did I go wrong feeling that a lot of parents experience. Did you experience that? And how did you process it?
Oh, yeah. I still wake up a couple times a week with questions about how our lives might have been different or how we got here. And no mother ever thinks that it'll be her kid. You just don't. And you replay parenting decisions in your head. I also wrote a post about the fact that we spanked our son. And that has haunted me for years. When he was little, I bought that was how we got this really rebellious kid in line. And we traumatized him. And so I've lived with that, and him and I have processed that together. That's what that post is all about.
Okay.
And I used to feel like a fraud. I mean, a licensed psychologist training other parents and educators in how to work with kids with behavioral difficulties. I would give these great classes, and people thought it was wonderful. And in the meantime, my own son was careening into addiction in county jail. And so I had to wade through that guilt and shame. Yeah. But I think I've realized that I was taking blame for things that have been beyond my control. The truth is I've raised 4 children. I'm still in the middle of raising one. So one of them's still 7 and at home. The other 3 are in their 20s. And while none of them are perfect, and I would do things differently if I had it to do over, this is life. Yeah. And I did the best that I could with what I had. And I'm proud of all my kids. I attend Codependence Anonymous, and I have a therapist because these are things that are ongoing considerations and things I have to live with. And I'm still unpacking how we got here and my continued role as a parent to all of my kids.
Wow. It's nice to hear that even therapists use therapists, which I know they do, and I've heard of it. But sometimes you can't see, you have your own things, right? You need someone else to help you weed through it.
Oh, for sure. I think good therapists have therapists.
Yeah.
We do not have all the answers at all.
Yeah. You're still human, even though sometimes I'm amazed at what a therapist has helped me through. And I remember I had a really good friend when I was in high school. Her older brother unalived himself, and her mom was a social worker. And the guilt that this woman went through, that she didn't see what he was going through, and that was her job, was to see those things. And I remember talking to her about it, and she went through so many years to basically forgive herself because she's not working when she's at home, right? It's her son, not her client.
Yeah.
And she wasn't evaluating him. It was her kid. But to get
and we're
through
trained
that,
not to.
Yeah.
You're sort of trained not to psychologize or use your training on your family. It's unethical to do that. And so while you've sort of always got your eye on family members as a professional, you don't use the same skill. It's just not the same. There's too many overlaps and feelings and knee-jerk reactions and gut instinct. I have too close to my children to be able to be removed enough to assess as a professional. In a lot of ways, it's just impossible to do that work.
So you spoke a little bit about shame and that feeling. What have been your experiences around shame and addiction, incarceration, and specifically about your family too, going through those emotions?
Well, shame it's such an interesting thing because it's a real part of both addiction and the socio-political conversations around incarceration. So we've got the double whammy here. I know a lot of moms who have sons and daughters inside who do not talk about it, even with friends or family, because the stigma for them is so heavy. And that's what keeps us sick. And I don't fault moms who are unable to, for whatever reason, not go public or tell friends and family about what they're walking through. I totally get the need for processing privately. I get the need for protection. And this blog, however, has allowed me to bear myself in a way that has lessened the shame around it. And I've had such a great response and such great people come out to support and say, we had no idea. We didn't know when we talk about prison, this is what we're talking about, or just really sorry for what your son is walking through. And that has helped a great deal.
Hi, I'm AJ, co-host of More Than an Inmate's Girlfriend podcast. If you love someone who's incarcerated, you already know this truth. The distance isn't just physical. It shows up in the small moments, birthdays, holidays, the random days when you just need to feel remembered. One of the hardest parts is knowing that the person you love often wants to show up for you, but doesn't have the ability to do it in the ways most people take for granted. That's why we created the More Than an Inmate's Girlfriend catalog. It gives incarcerated men a real opportunity to send meaningful gifts to their loved ones, to say, I see you, I appreciate you, and you still matter to me. Right now, you can send this catalog to your person for free. Go to morethananinmatesgirlfriend.com, click buy it, and enter the code JANDAJ. That's JAEANDAJ. This discount won't last forever, so head to the website now and get your free catalog while this offer still stands, because love shouldn't disappear because of incarceration, and connection shouldn't be something you have to fight this hard to keep.
Have you had people judge you?
Oh, sure. I'm sure I've lost friends, acquaintances on social media who immediately unplugged, who don't want to hear anything about it. And some of that falls along political lines, and some of it is just ignorance. People have zero idea what they're talking about when we talk about prison.
Yeah.
And I've learned to empathize with their ignorance.
Oh, really?
I have to say that's about them. Okay. And God forbid it's ever you. God forbid that you're ever in my shoes. Because 50% of Americans have a member of their nuclear family who's been incarcerated. 50%.
Wow.
And that's from jail to prison, but that's an incredible amount of people. We have 2 million people behind bars, actually in prison right now as we speak, and every single one of them born to a mother.
Yeah.
So to pretend like I'm a pariah or that I'm somehow odd is to ignore that 50% of Americans have lived through this experience to some degree or another.
Yeah.
And they also have no idea that part of my empathy comes in understanding I did not realize.
Yeah.
So I can look back at my former self.
Okay.
And I can say I had no idea how much money, my own tax money, has been wasted every year on useless policy and corporate prison wealth or prison interest. What is that, 4,700 companies are supported by the prison industry, something like that.
Wow.
And even the infighting over political persuasions and, quote, reform efforts, all of this is just silliness because people really don't know what they're saying.
Yeah.
The bury them under the jail folks and the throw away the key people who make comments, they just really don't understand how negatively they're impacting their own community, their own families, when they blindly follow tough on crime policies.
100%.
I wrote a blog post, or a whole series actually on the blog called I Don't Believe in Prison Reform. And I got to co-write that with a man who's been incarcerated for 41 years.
Wow.
And he said that even the word reform isn't helpful anymore because it's like saying slavery needed reform. And what we need is a new social paradigm. We need a whole shift in our response to crime because prison is a failed experiment.
It really is.
We don't need another initiative. It has failed. And so I can get into the weeds on that for days.
Yeah.
But people just don't know what they're talking about. So I have to chalk it up to ignorance and forgive them for that.
I find it so hard. I have such a hard time dealing with some people's comments. I'm still figuring that out. But the shame thing, totally understand where you're coming from on that, because when I started, I hid a lot about Nick for a long time, and I had so much shame because this isn't how I plan my life, and this isn't quote unquote what kind of person I should be with, or my career level and success level in life in general should not equate to being with someone who's incarcerated for life, and all this shame that really he's the most incredible person I've ever known and I adore him, and why am I so ashamed of this person? And once I started just saying F it, I'm just going to tell people and I'm just going to expose everything, the relief I feel is like tenfold. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden it's just lifted. Like, you know what? If I lose friends, I lose friends. If people are judging me, let them judge me. I don't care anymore. And it really does feel so much better. So I can relate when you release that blog, how you would feel.
Because, well, the position of a wife or girlfriend or spouse or partner is different than mine. And you're making a conscious choice to pitch your life to someone that you didn't have any allegiance to maybe prior, or you didn't have to. You could make the choice to walk away. As a parent, it's a double-edged sword. I've known him since the day he was born. I claim him as mine. I care about him, and I'm his biggest supporter, come what may. And people accept that as the role of mom, almost like, well, you're kind of stuck with it. So there's shame. For me, I think it's a little bit of a different flavor for you.
100%.
Because we can make all kinds of nasty comments about the choice that you're making to stick by somebody. Whereas mine feels more like a duty.
True. Very true. Big picture question, because I feel like you're so knowledgeable and I need to know what you think. When you spoke about prison reform and not using that word and redesigning that system, what do you think that would look like?
Ooh, it took me 3 weeks to unfold this in the series on the blog. But we outlined a total overhaul of the current system that really starts the day that they're classified, right? So you go into prison and you walk into this system that classifies you along a security continuum and sort of looks at measures of how dangerous you are, versus looking at the need for maturity, the need for positive socialization, the need for mentors or accountability training, the need for you to become competent to be free. And those are massive overarching themes. We put lots of details underneath in the series. But when I'm talking about a paradigm shift, I'm talking about a radical flip of the entire system upside down. And it's not that we don't need secure facilities for folks who are truly dangerous. I'm not an abolitionist, nor is the person who wrote the blog with me. Not a complete prison abolitionist, because I do believe that there are predatory, dangerous individuals, albeit a very small part of the population, that may demand to be under psychiatric watch and care for the rest of their lives. And in no way am I saying that we just blow up prisons and we don't do this thing. But I do think for most folks, especially when they're entering the system young and they've been engaged in crimes that are not morally deviant, but misinformed, folks who are under the influence of addiction, maybe acting out of lack of education, lack of resources, lack of stability, whatever it might be, that the idea is that we then address the lack. We need to help mentor and model and guide folks toward what we called freedom competency. And it requires true rehabilitation over a system of containment and stagnation. And so I would encourage anybody to read the series on the blog to get a better idea of what it is we're talking about, because it's pretty heavy and it's a big mind shift.
What about people who don't want the help yet?
Great question. I think that one of the things that my co-writer had said to me was he had a CO look at him. He had a young cellmate during COVID who just kept making silly decisions. And he thought, man, you can't be this stupid. You just can't be this stupid. And then it dawned on him He really is that stupid. And he said, I'm saying that because I recognize I was once that stupid. And the CO said to him, he wrote the kid a ticket, and he said, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yeah.
And his incarcerated cellmate said, then we got to feed him a lot of salt. You got to make him thirsty. And that kind of changed my perspective on how we address folks who don't seem ready to change. There are ways that we can make people interested. There are ways that we can incentivize people to level up rather than spiral downward. And there's a couple American models that are doing this. There's the farm out in North Dakota and CSI Chester in Pennsylvania that have figured out that using mentors is a really good thing for both the mentors and the mentees.
So the challenge should be how to get them to want to. That would be the main challenge.
Yeah.
But
rewarding. Yeah, because I think the current system, all it does is encourage, especially young guys who are not yet worn out with their own behaviors, to fight harder. Just fight against the system, fight against these guys, fight against other people.
Yeah.
And that's what you get. It's the law of physics. You push against something and it's going to push back. And that's what we get. We just get more of that.
Stubbornness. So you and I have talked a lot about solitary confinement, not now, but before. And I myself have been researching a lot on solitary confinement because for some reason, and I've said it before and I've said it to my husband, I really care about felony murder because he's in for felony murder and I think it's ridiculous. But solitary confinement for some reason trumps how I feel about felony murder because I feel like we need to have humanity, and I feel like solitary confinement for long periods of time is just so inhumane, and I don't know why it's still existing. But I feel like you would know a lot more and be able to explain a lot better what the detrimental effects are of it and what you think we should do instead.
I certainly don't have all the answers, but I am in the middle of writing a post about solitary confinement. During these writing stints, I do a lot of research. I would say don't get me started on solitary confinement because it is also one of my, it just absolutely burns. My son has done over 200 days in solitary confinement, and some of that was due to COVID policies, some of it was due to misconduct, some of it's due that he needed protection from a specific guard.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of reasons, but it is devastating as a family member to know that your child or your loved one isn't seeing daylight, can't have their things, is not allowed their books, can't get a visit, can't make phone calls. I did not have claustrophobia until my son went to prison. And I do now, even by proxy. And I can't imagine what these guys have gone through. For me, when the Mandela rules and the Geneva Convention and the World Health Organization all agree that solitary confinement or isolation for more than 22, 23 hours a day, beyond 15 days, is inhumane.
Yeah.
I mean, this is researched, it's known, it's part of war treaties. It blows my mind that somehow DOCs are getting away with it still.
Yeah.
We know that there are serious health consequences. The mental health impact alone is life-altering. And sadly, we can read books and we can read about some folks' experience with solitary confinement because they made it out.
Yeah.
There are many voices I don't think that we'll ever hear, even the ones who are still alive, because they have been so mentally altered that they could never coherently tell their story. Medical ethics demand protection from practices that cause harm. And solitary confinement, blood pressure, we could look at that measure alone and say that this is detrimental to health. And we have people who have spent years. I know a man who did 14 years. He went straight from 14 years in solitary confinement to the street.
Oh, gosh.
They released him after that. And we talk about safety for our community.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's unsafe, but if this is a regular occurrence, we need to question how that's happening. You know, we had a man down in Angola, Albert Foxwood, spent 43 years in solitary confinement. I don't know that the public understands, in general, that this happens all the time. We're talking decades of men's lives in a cell no bigger than a parking space for 23 to 24 hours a day. And to go outside means you're in a small cage by yourself. No human contact. That is the definition of torture.
It really is.
And the figures right now, I think we have like over 120,000 people sitting in solitary confinement as we're speaking.
Oh, gosh.
It's overused. It's excessive. It's harmful, period. It should be extremely limited, extremely time limited if it's used at all. We need to give people in these cells support for distress. And one of the things that we talked about in terms of changing the system is we put folks in an empty room and tell them that they deserve it. And really what we need to be doing is, if you're going to put someone in a room because they're unsafe, then offer them help on how to figure out how to get back to safety. How do we get back to stability rather than just putting people in rooms?
Forget about them.
It's nuts to me.
It really is. And my husband also says, like, you're saying that they're unsafe, but why are you taking away all their stuff? And I don't know about it where your son is, but where Nick is, they also take all your property and give you an orange jumpsuit. So they want you to feel like you're an animal. And then they claim that it's for safety status, not for punishment. They're not punishing you. So we're not following the Mandela rules. Like, we are following it because it's not for punishment. It's for safety. But we're going to take all your stuff. We're going to keep you away from your family. Some people have been in there a decade and have not seen their kids in a decade. It's crazy.
Unconscionable.
Yeah. There's a guy in Nebraska who they use as an example because they're trying to figure out solitary right now in Nebraska. And there's a serial killer, Nico Jenkins. And apparently he was very normal. And then he went into solitary and he asked for help and he was having very bad mental health issues. Apparently they didn't get him the help. Then it was time for him to be released. And he was released and he killed 4 people or something like that. He went from solitary to the streets. And he told them, I'm going to make you pay for what you did to me. And what he did was chose random people to kill.
Yeah, because nobody's learning anything of value in years of isolation. We're creating hungry, neglected, desocialized animals in that setting.
Exactly.
Even animals are not allowed to be treated that way. And so then we're surprised that someone gets out and acts non-human.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be.
But I think you're right. A lot of people don't know. And I never even thought about that. Because people wouldn't know.
I think if people understood how their tax dollars were used and how much it endangers their own community, things would shift drastically, which is why I write, just to say, here's the reality that I see and that I understand.
So speaking about your blog, I have to say that I literally remember when I came across it, and I remember calling AJ and being like, oh my gosh, there's this mom that writes. And I was so excited. This is months ago. I think you'd only had maybe 4 or 5 posts at that point.
Oh, wow.
And I read through them.
The first post in January of 25.
Yeah.
And I think it took me a couple of weeks to get onto social media with it all. But
okay. And it was eye-opening for me for so many reasons. And one of those being that I don't come across a lot of moms that are so open and vocal, but then everything that you were saying just made sense. And I remember telling AJ, we need to have this woman on. And you've actually been a project for a very long time that we've wanted to have you on. I'd like you to just talk a little bit more about what inspired you and where you came up with the idea to start doing these posts and sharing your story.
Yeah. First, I think that we don't often hear from moms because of some of that shame and pain. You know, having an incarcerated child means by most measures that you failed your most important job. And that's hard to unpack privately, let alone in the public eye. And the second reason I think moms are quiet is because we're damn busy. We're often the ones supporting the incarcerated kid. We're raising other kids. We're tending home. We're working. We're shopping. We're being everything to everybody. And so even when we want to advocate, we're too busy to do the uphill climb that it takes. It was my illness that allowed me space and time to be able to create the blog. And then there's also this swatch of moms, and I've been in this group, where we're fed up. We have done everything we know to do to help our child who is now incarcerated. We've been through years of difficult things. We've lost financially a great deal. We've been through the rehabs and the wrecked cars and the stolen things and all of that stuff, and we just are weary with the road. And I am a little bit of an anomaly in that way that I also am not finding a lot of moms writing. I have found a couple great private mom groups on Facebook, and there are some wonderful moms in there who are warriors in their own way. They're not speaking out publicly, but they certainly are doing important jobs for each other in those groups.
Oh, good.
But the blog was born actually out of my quest to heal. So about 2 years ago, I got really sick, and that led to a forced leave from work. And I've always been a writer. In fact, my undergrad was in English writing. I've always used writing as a catharsis, an avenue of purging or puking out what I'm feeling and what I need to process. And so I started writing as a way to process all the pain and fear of having a son inside. And then as I got brave and started to tell my story, I was part of a documentary, and that was kind of the first public thing that I did. And I shared that, and I got some positive feedback and some private notes. And then I got brave and put out my first blog post, and I got some DMs and some thank yous from other moms who can't yet or won't ever speak.
Yeah.
And that has been a huge part of my own recovery process and my own processing. It keeps me connected to my son, but it also helps me work through the emotions, because there are times I'm still angry. There are times I'm very sad. The holidays are rough.
Yeah.
And so what I'm writing right now is a reflection of, oh, we're coming into this season again, and he's not going to be here. And so, yeah, the blog has been as much catharsis as it has been an advocacy platform.
And the name, Black Sheep Mom, I love it. I think it's very catchy.
Yeah, it's functional. My son's first tattoo was a black sheep. And that name served as inspiration, not only because he has long felt like a black sheep, but I am in mom groups. You know, when you talk about motherhood, it's a very outside position to take, to be the mother of someone who's in prison.
That's true. And so you talked about the other moms that you've connected with. And I feel like for me, doing this podcast has really what's helped me feel like I'm contributing, like I'm connected. It makes me feel like I'm a part of something. It doesn't make me feel so alone. That must be part healing for you as well, because I'm sure you probably get tons of messages from people.
I do. I get a lot more messages, though, from people who say, I had no idea. So while I do get messages from moms who follow me anonymously and other moms in Facebook groups, the really interesting part has been from moms who never considered any of this. And for the first time, they're hearing the story and saying, well, she seems pretty normal. And if it could happen to their family, it could happen to ours. It could happen to anybody. So moms in general going, oh, I'm not above this.
Yeah.
It's been very humanizing, I think, not just for me, but that's the goal of the blog, is to humanize this experience. Is when the whole Charlie Kirk thing happened, and I know that's a hot button topic on both sides, but I thought about that mom. I thought about both moms who both worked in mental health.
Oh, wow.
Both Charlie Kirk's mom and the shooter's mom both worked in social work.
Wow.
And moms in general, we owe it to each other to support each other. And that's been a really cool part about the blog, is to find that moms, even not in my position, have said, wow, thank you for sharing. I had no idea.
That's incredible. And I was just thinking, as you're telling me this, that makes sense. And part of AJ and I's goals with this is to go beyond the prison community so that people that aren't impacted or affiliated with it can try and understand us a little bit more. And I really have this belief that women are going to be what affects the prison system the most. I think that the compassion and the way that women are more nurturing, I think that we can drive change in a system that's so hard and so masculine. But to hear from a mom's perspective that you're teaching other moms what it's actually like and humanizing the experience on that side, I never connected that. And I'm sorry for that, because it's genius.
No.
And I'm fascinated. I am part of the community, but I'm so fascinated on your words and your stories and your take on things because of the mom perspective. But moms that aren't affiliated, like my mom, would love to hear from you. So it's really important to not just share it within the community, but outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I didn't even stumble on until I was in the middle of this is that it is a grief process.
Yeah.
And a lot of moms can relate to that grief, regardless of we're talking about prison or losing a child to addiction or losing a child to fractured relationships or losing a child in death. I have a lot of moms who follow me who say the grief process is very similar. You cannot access your son in the real world. He is not going to be at the table for Thanksgiving. And every year you grieve. And so do I.
Yeah.
And the things that women do, the things that women are capable of, the burdens that we carry, women are by and large the ones supporting men behind bars.
Yeah.
And that's the burden that we carry while we're still trying to hold everything else together.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think it is our voice that influences where we go as a society.
That grief piece, how do you deal with that and process those emotions?
Oh, it is a true grief process. This descent into prison is obviously a loss of your child physically and in many other ways. I haven't been able to have a real, true, honest conversation with my son since he went in because someone's always listening and someone's always watching. And you have to be careful what you say and what you write. And so there's that barrier. But prison grief is different, at least it's been from what I can see, because you can't grieve, quote, normally. Yeah. No one seems to care that you're gutted, you can't think straight, you cry yourself to sleep, you grieve through every holiday and birthday for what might have been. You watch your kids' peers get married and have babies and move forward in life, and they're perpetually on pause and considered bad or evil or got what they deserved. And so the grieving is different in that it's not acceptable. It's just not widely acceptable for you to grieve in a way that if I had lost my son, people would give me a pass and let me just be a mess. I'm not allowed to do that because these were choices that he made, and you get what you get. So there's been a lot of private grief that has to unfold while you talk to other moms privately who get it. And a lot of times you don't even need to say words. You just get it. You just understand.
That's so lonely. It feels so lonely when you speak about that.
Yeah.
Wow. Or it can be if you don't have anyone, because you're right.
For sure.
Never thought about it like that. I'm assuming that would be the hardest part, but is there anything else that you found going through everything that you've been through with your son regarding his addiction and incarceration that you'd find the hardest?
The physical toll, I think I underestimated that. The first 2 years, I don't think I slept. I had awful dreams, and if I woke in the dark, all I could picture was him in that locked cell.
Yeah.
And so like I was talking about claustrophobia, that feeling of I can't breathe, it would descend on me. When we talk about doing the time with our family members at times, you actually feel that weight. I sleep okay now, but if I don't hear from him, or if I know he's being moved, or there's some sort of glitch in the matrix, he's in solitary confinement, something, once again, I return to no sleep, irritability goes up, the way that impacts my spouse, my other family members, my youngest son, how that impacted my day going into a work day was significant. And so I did not understand the physical toll that this burden was taking on me. And I've probably aged 10 years in the last 5 navigating all of this, because it is taxing and stressful and exhausting to a level that I've never been stretched.
Yeah. And I feel like it's always like in the back of your brain. I feel like I'm always on waiting for something to happen because he's in a dangerous environment. I don't know at any point he could get hurt or something could happen and you lose connection or whatever. It's like in the back of my head all the time. I feel like no matter, even if I'm sleeping, even if I'm whatever, I'm always carrying it around the world of when is something
we remain hyper vigilant, right? We're on alert. We're on alert 24/7. People don't understand until I wrote this in a post. I said, I'm on call. Yeah. I carry my phone from room to room and I leave my ringer on because I never know. And I have to be on call. And even my spouse said to me, I never thought about that. Yeah. Until you wrote that, I never thought about why you carry your phone from room to room. Yeah. And that's why. Because I may miss a call. He may need me. There might be an emergency. And so, we're hypervigilant all the time.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm not a mom. So were you like that before? Or has it been because of this?
Yeah, I think you have that protective sort of instinct that comes in, at least for me as a mom. But your child's usually not in hell.
Right.
And so it is on 10 when they go to prison because they are surrounded by dangerous individuals. Yeah. They're surrounded by dangerous policies. the cards are stacked against them, and they're just one person against a lot of evil in there.
Yeah.
And so it's just multiplied by exponentially to have a kid inside. And I sometimes feel bad. I do worry about my other kids or think about them or pray for them and process for them, but I'm not as hyper vigilant and worried as I am about my oldest
right now.
Right.
How do you show up with so much love and hope to keep going and face the world despite all this?
Hope. I think I learned long ago with this particular child that there was a tenacity that would be required to be his mom, and I've understood the mission, and I'm still on it. But I know my son's heart, and I know his unique struggles. I know his BS, and I also know his hopes and his dreams. And I don't care what the world thinks of the labels that we've put on him. I believe in him, and I think that he has an incredible, meaningful life ahead of him. And if I lose that hope, who else will carry it?
Yeah.
I have to reframe and reset myself every single day. I think about the moms who've gone before me, women who've had to endure much longer, much more difficult circumstances. And so I join somehow in spirit with them. We do not have the luxury of giving up.
Yeah.
I don't have the luxury of walking away. And I know some moms have. I know some moms have said, that's enough, I can't do anymore. And I don't fault them. And I can't blame them. Yeah. But I'm not there.
You're not there.
So
keep pushing.
Yep.
I want to ask first about protecting your family's mental health and your other kids and showing up for them. How do you balance it all?
Ooh, that's a daily dance. It hasn't been without bumps along the way. My older kids have their own relationship with their brother, and that hasn't been without frustrations and letdowns and sadness and their own process. I'm sure at times that there's been resentment for the amount of stress and strain and financial resource that one child has required over the others. And I've always just tried to maintain an open door stance on these conversations. I've processed with my older kids and even my little one to make sure that they understand that I'd do it for any of them. If it was any one of them, that this would be no different. Mm-hmm. And I think they understand why I support their brother as much as I do. But that said, I have to take care of myself first. I have to protect my energy. I have to maintain my health. If I don't do that, I can't be anything for anybody else. Yeah. So there are times I've had to put up boundaries. There are times I've had to say no. There are times when I've had to put my phone away and focus on the people in the room. Mm. And though I can't compartmentalize my heart, I have learned to get better about being present. It's not always about the one in prison. The holidays are a good example of that. I work really hard to give them a holiday or a birthday or time without conversation around prisons. And how it all sucks. There's a time to advocate and there is a time to step away or step back too, because we have to keep living.
Yeah.
And I don't think that my son in prison would fault me for that at all.
No.
He takes ownership for why he's there. So.
Yeah. There's a lot of times where I've spoken with my husband's mom and she says, I feel bad having fun. I feel bad that you're coming for Christmas and he's not going to be here and he's going to miss out on all the celebrations. And it's so true. But then at the same time, he's like, I want you to go have fun. I want you not to stop your life. But it's a hard kind of balance, I think, especially around holidays, because they can both be true.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. And I'll carve out time to go visit, private time to go see my son or see if family members want to go with me. I've been able to take some of my kids to visits to see him. And it is interesting to see them interact and to continue their relationships because, Lord willing, they're in this together longer. I'll be gone. And I want those relationships to be maintained. That's been important to me in terms of keeping the family together and keeping their conversation going and keeping some understanding between the four of them.
Yeah. I know for me, growing up, I'm one of three, and there was definitely a learning curve of some kids require more attention than others. And I was one of the ones that didn't require a lot of attention. And being resentful, I guess you grow out of it as you get older. But I know when you were speaking about that, I was like, yeah, but that happens like all the time. My older brother was such a troublemaker and my mom spent so much energy on him. She practically pulled him by the ear to graduate high school. And he's doing fine now, but it did require more than I required. And there's definitely for every family, I think, learning that.
True. Yeah, it's true. And it's true in my family of origin as well. And I think it makes each of us who we're supposed to be.
You've talked a little bit about your son growing and changing while he's been in there. Has there been any specific moments where you could feel hope for the future?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that my son always says is that prison saved his life, and I hate it when he says that. Oh, man, I hate it. Because I don't believe that because he's not home yet.
Right.
We live with the danger of prison, and I want to believe that. What he means is that it stopped him from recklessness on the street.
Yeah.
And I've seen stretches of sobriety. I've seen him take an interest in his recovery from use.
Yeah.
I've seen a maturity come about in his thinking. So no longer a passive victim of his life, but participating in his own growth. Not because of the system, but in spite of it. He's read more books this year, I think, than he ever read in all of his years of school. I send him a lot of books, and he's even leveled up in the type of books that he's reading. He listens to the old guys. He wants to glean wisdom from people. One of the things he said, this is ironic, level 1 is full of guys bouncing in and out of the system, young guys, their first ride. And he said he'd rather be in level 4 given the environment, because these are guys who, this is their home. A lot of them are lifers. They've had to do the hard work and really wrestle down to the ground who they are and what's right and what's wrong. And so there's a lot more boundaries and barriers in terms of social behavior in level 4.
Yeah.
And he would prefer that over the shenanigans of level 1. And that tells me he's grown. He doesn't want to be in with a bunch of loud people causing problems.
Wow.
He talks about finding a wife and having kids and living free from patterns of addiction. And you can hear it makes me emotional.
Yeah.
That he believes in a life beyond this someday.
Yeah.
And that he takes responsibility for that. And so, I see a lot of hope.
Oh, that's so nice to hear that he's connecting with some lifers that are able to guide him a bit.
Yeah.
I know for my husband, who's a lifer, seeing the young kids come in and seeing the ones that actually care and are ready to change and stuff, he loves seeing that because he wasn't ready for change for so long. And it's very recent that he's become very different. And now he just wants to share it with everyone because he's like, I wish I could have gotten here sooner. And if I could have gotten here in my 20s, maybe I wouldn't be where I am. So to hear that, as much as your son's learning, to me, I'm thinking like, wow, he's giving those lifers the opportunity, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways. I know my husband says the same thing about prison saved him. And I think it's almost like because it's what we assume prison's supposed to do, that we say these things. But when my husband and I were talking about solitary confinement, he, for the longest time, was like, you have to be in solitary for at least 6 months so that you can actually start thinking about your life and spending the time alone with yourself to figure out why you are where you are and where you went wrong and all this stuff. But then when I was talking to him about the Canadian system, and he's like, it's so ingrained in my head that solitary, because that's how I became who I was, and that's how I took the time to realize that I didn't want to do certain things anymore. He's like, doesn't mean everybody has to go through the trauma of solitary for 6 months to get there. So he's like, that's all I know. Yeah. So for me, it makes sense. But when you're speaking, like maybe there is another way that's not traumatic and lifelong mental injury to get where he needs to go.
What does it say about our system that you would need to go into solitary confinement to have space and time to think and process? I mean, that alone is an indictment of the way that prison is run. Because ideally, you would go in, and that would be the goal of it.
Yeah.
Is that you start to have some time to reflect and really think about why you're there. It's so much shenanigans from day one that you really don't get it. And it takes the trauma of solitary confinement to actually start to work through some stuff. That says a lot about our system in general.
Scary. Institutionalization.
Yeah.
Yeah. How has that affected your son? I know my husband is institutionalized. I mean, obviously he's been there 15 years. Do you have worries about it? Because your son hasn't been in as long, and he does have an outdate.
Yeah. Yeah, I do worry about it. And I've seen signs for even a couple of years now that he's institutionalized. I don't think you have a choice. If you're going to survive it, I think you have to conform. There are times he's chosen not to fight tickets because the fight won't be worth the time and energy. He's already been trained. Don't bother. He gets resigned to the system winning every time.
Yeah.
There's been times I felt like we should fight or speak out or do something, and he just believes that it'll bring more strife or restrictions on him.
Yeah.
I don't think he yet realizes how much prison has changed his nervous system. Even in visits, he's mastered that art of scanning the room without scanning the room.
Yeah.
He's hypervigilant and aware of every movement, every door, every person. He can overhear conversations happening while he's talking. He has become very much a product of that environment. And I am concerned in some ways about the day that he comes home and how being in a car or being in an open space, having silent spaces, eating real food, having freedom and access devices freely. Yeah. What a major adjustment that's going to take for him not to be told when to stand, when to sit, where to go, when to eat.
Yeah.
All of these things that he's been conditioned for years now to do. It'll be a big shift for all of us.
Definitely that room scanning thing freaks me out every time. Substance abuse, from a psychologist standpoint, for those that are struggling with a loved one that is in the midst of a substance abuse issue, what would you tell someone they could do to support them?
Well, one, for prison moms, if you know, you know, no Cash App. If your child has had an addiction issue, I don't care what the claim is, we don't do Cash App. I have learned the hard way. It's a deep, dark hole, and a lot of times it leads to nowhere good. So that's been one boundary that I've had. It's likely for things that you don't need.
Yeah.
That's one. That's just practical enabling there. I would say, even as a professional, reading Codependent No More by Melody Beattie, or any Melody Beattie text around codependency, has been huge, even more than Al-Anon.
Wow.
For me, I'm not a huge 12-stepper person, but Codependence Anonymous has taught me so much about being powerless over our loved ones' choices and behaviors. And I think I've needed that lesson, and to understand how I've played into these dynamics for years, unknowingly, how insidious addiction is. And it's because we have good hearts that we get caught up in these cycles of enabling. So you can find a codependent chapter or meeting near you. They're international. They're all over. Wow. You can find them online. I go to a meeting every week.
Wow.
Every week. And I reread Codependent No More probably once every 2 years. And I have a daily book that I read. And it's just something that helps me, reminds me to secure my oxygen mask and make sure that I've got my boundaries in place. We'll go crazy and get really old trying to make another person change. We can love them without playing the game, and we absolutely have to take care of ourselves and then let them take care of themselves too. Can't do it for them. So the other hard lesson has been, I've had to be willing to let my son fail. I have to be willing to let him relapse.
Wow.
And with everything in me, I don't want that.
Yeah.
But that's on him, not me. So the only thing I can do is manage my reactions to whatever's coming. And through both therapy and my women in codependent, shout out to all of them, because they've just been an incredible source of support. They all know exactly what it's like. A lot of moms in there have similar situations. And yeah, they're great to just have to lean on.
And as a mom, any other moms that are listening right now and maybe in the thick of it, maybe trying to figure out what to do, what not to do, what kind of advice would you give?
First, taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
We have to take care of ourselves. And I think I was running breathless for a long time, trying to do all the things for everybody else. And you can only do that for so long before you're going to crash and burn. I've had to take a step back. And I've heard recently from a couple of moms whose sons just went in. And I hear in them this sort of breathless pursuit of fixing it, making it better, getting ahead of things, set up all the accounts, make sure everything's okay, and do what you can do. They've got to walk their path. And that's, I think, the hardest thing for me, is to say, yes, I'm his mom, and I'm an advocate, and I am in support of him. but he's got to take the reins here. And a lot of times he knows better than me what he needs. I don't have all the answers. But my first response to those moms who call me or reach out is, you're not alone. Like I said earlier, there's 2 million people in American prisons, and they were all born to a mom. And most of us have been good moms by the standard definition.
Yeah.
We're not bad people because bad things have occurred or mistakes have happened. And I have an open message policy too. And I say, please reach out to me or find a family advocacy group in your state. There are organizations that help us navigate the uncertainty and the injustices along this journey. And I certainly have found that. I have an incredible group here in my state that has supported me through some very dark and confusing times. And sometimes they don't even know what to say, but they say, we'll get back to you. And they usually have an answer, or they're at least in the fight with you. They won't let you feel alone. The last thing I say is it's going to be okay. Even when it's not, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. We still got to move forward.
Yep.
I can't tell you how appreciative I am and express how grateful I am that you took the time out to speak with me finally. How can they reach you? What are your socials and where can they read all your blog posts?
Yeah, so the easiest way to reach me is at blacksheepmom.com. It's just spelled out. And it's on Substack, so that's an app for bloggers, for writers. So a lot of people get tripped up when they first visit it. They go, but it took me to something called Substack. That's the thing. You can either put your email address in and subscribe, and then all my posts will come to your email, or you can bypass that screen and just get right into the blogs and read and poke around what you want to. It is free. You do not have to pay for it. So I think some folks go to Substack and are like, oh, what do I have to pay for? Not. So blacksheepmom.com is where I post all of my blog posts. And if you sign up there with your email, the post will come to your email box. You don't ever have to visit Substack. I am on Instagram, like you said. I'm on Facebook. And, of course, Black Sheep Mom was taken in both of those places. So it's like black, period, sheep, period, mom on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, the best place to find me is on my website. And you can DM me there. You can make comments on posts so that I see them and we can be in touch that way, too.
Awesome. And can you just share with us your recent accomplishment when it comes to your blog posts?
Yeah, so I just found out last week that we had hit a bestseller list.
Yeah.
Which was great. And actually, it was in the parenting category, which shocked me. So again, it goes back to like moms are reading.
Yeah.
You'd think it would be in politics or, you know, or criminal justice. It wasn't. It was in the parenting category. We hit bestseller. So yeah, big proud moment there.
Yeah.
What it feels like is that you shout into the void all the time with these concerns and you don't know if anybody's listening. And so when you get something like that, you go, wow, people heard what I had to say. And in my life, my struggle, my son's struggle matters.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like it's all in vain.
Yeah.
And also it's that feeling of like, we're in this together and there's a whole bunch of us. And so I feel good for other moms and wives and partners like me that are struggling through this, that it's a voice that we need out there.
And how much you're healing others just by writing your thoughts and experiences. So cool.
Well, that's the hope, right? I'm a psychologist for a reason, and if I have any aid in healing other folks in this difficult thing called living, I've done the thing I came here to do.
And before you go, I was just curious because you did mention a documentary, and I did not know that. Are you able to share it?
Yeah.
What is it?
It was a very small documentary, and it is powerful. It's called Michigan Visits Matter, The Cost of Incarceration.
Okay.
It's a short documentary. It's won a couple of awards, though, exploring the devastating impact of visitation restrictions on families.
Oh, cool.
It's worth a look. There's a mom in there who's lost her visits indefinitely. There's a couple formerly incarcerated guys. And there's a couple other moms in it, too. Yeah, it's worth seeing.
Okay, cool. I'm going to actually check it out like today. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it.